Before I begin my presentation, I would just like to make a quick note that we did not coordinate on slides, and this is totally just a coincidence, but we do have the same template. So my name is Alex Oppel, and I will be presenting my research on the effect of previous innings played on batter plate appearance outcomes. I think we might be having some technical difficulties. It's doing the Zoom. The MLB season is extremely long and compact, and consequently, batters can play up to 10 days in a row. And as a result of this, it's very likely that they might become tired and fatigued because of this. So while many previous studies have focused on the effect of pitcher workload, not many studies have looked at how workload affects batter performance. Although one study by Russell Carlton did attempt to quantify batter fatigue based on how many games a batter had played in their previous 7, 14, and 21 games. And Carlton found that workload had a negative impact on all types of hits, although interestingly, it did not have any influence on walks or strikeouts. So while we've discussed why playing too frequently could result in poor batter performance, I also believe that there's a possibility that playing too little could result in poor batter performance, because baseball is such a timing and routine-oriented game that seeing too little pitches could cause a batter to be out of routine, and this could negatively affect their performance. So the hypothesis I take to measure the impact of playing time on batter performance is that the relationship between workload and performance will be a quadratic relationship. The 4 models I ran I ran 4 logistic regressions to analyze the effect of playing time on batter performance. And these looked at a batter's hit percentage, home run percentage, walk percentage, and strikeout percentage. To quantify batter fatigue, I used the number of innings they played in their previous 7 days, and then included this as a quadratic. I did this because I thought it would be more predictive of how much a batter actually played compared to just whether they played in the game or not. It could differentiate between merely pitch hitting and playing the full game, or possibly even extra innings. And then I also included a measure for batter quality, which is the Bill James log 5 method for batter pitcher outcomes. And I will discuss both of these variables in the coming slides. So innings played per game were calculated by taking the inning a player exited the game and subtracting the inning they entered the game, and then adding 1. And then this was summed over their previous 7 days. The visualization shows the distribution of the number of innings batters played in the samples. The median is 54, and this equates to 6 full games played over their last 7 days. So in calculating workload effect and how it influenced batter performance, it was very important to control for batter quality, because good players play more. So if it was uncontrolled for, it might be observed that more playing time leads to better performance. So I controlled for batter quality using the Bill James log 5 method for batter pitcher outcomes, which controls for the likelihood of an event occurring given 3 inputs: batter event rate, pitcher event rate, and league average event rate. And when plugged into the formula you see on your screen, it gives you the probability that that respective event will occur. To better understand the log 5 method, here's an example of Mike Trout facing off against Clayton Kershaw in a 2015 matchup. Trout's 2015 walk rate was about 14%. Kershaw's walk rate that year was about 5%, and the league average walk rate was about 8%. When we insert these into the formula, we get that the probability that Trout walks against Kershaw is about 8%. And this is included, this specific example, among others, is included in the walk probability model. All data used were from the 2010 through 2019 seasons. For batters to be included, they needed to have a minimum of 500 at-bats. But pitcher qualifications were a little more complicated. I once again used Carlton's findings of where each dependent variable stabilized and used these as the minimums for pitcher qualifications. However, for home runs, I used qualified pitchers instead because no batters face, no pitchers face 1,300 batters in a season, so I would have had no data. These are summary statistics on the data that I included in my models. It includes both the independent and dependent variables, and the dependent variables are bolded, and it contains the number of observations that each of these occurred in their given samples, and the total observations, as well as the proportion. I'll leave that up there for a second. As for the model results, as expected, the log5 probabilities were highly statistically significant, but unfortunately, none of the innings played variables were significant. And here's marginal effects of the innings played plots that kind of reinforce the fact that they're all statistically significant, as the confidence intervals, which are in gray, set to 90, overlap 0. Although the hit probability model is close, it just barely overlaps with 0. So there is weak evidence to suggest that a quadratic relationship might be evident in that model. So as I just discussed, the hit probability model has weak evidence for the relationship between batter workload and hit probability. And this gets maximized at about 42 innings played, which potentially suggests that batters could use an occasional off day. But even though all the results were fairly insignificant, I don't think this suggests that fatigue isn't important. I just don't think it's being necessarily quantified in the right way. So for future work, one thing I would like to do is control for the position being played. An example of this is catching. I can have much more wear and tear than DHing or playing first base. I would also like to possibly differentiate between these type of off days. For example, a scheduled off day where the team's still playing might be more relaxing than a travel day and moving between cities and time zones. I would also like to not use future data to predict present outcomes, which is what happens when I calculate statistics over a season level, and then use those rates for specific at-bats within the season. And I would also like to look into a generalized logit model, which would not assume the quadratics to be symmetrical. My data sources for calculating my variables, I used baseball reference game logs to calculate the previous innings played variables. Retrosheet event files were how I determined my dependent variables, and I used the layman database to calculate batter, pitcher, and league average event rates. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching, and I would be happy to take any questions at this time. No, I did not. They were all treated the same. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. I think, you know, playing, if say you play a 12-inning game the day before, that probably has a greater toll on you than 7 days ago. So some type of weight to each inning played, based on how recent it was, could be something to look into.
The fatigue effects are the same for hitters and pitchers, that they kind of differ? If so, how do those fatigue effects kind of differ?
Well, I didn't really look into much on the pitcher side, so I don't know. I can't really answer your question.
Batters are often rested when the matchup for them is a bad one. I'm wondering if that might have been the platoon split might be something down here. Might actually show more of the result.
Okay. Thank you.
Without taking the opportunity that we are looking at an effect that is real, but not sufficiently large to impact on major league strategy. Basically, we need to decline enough of the and guy on the bench before it makes any difference.
Yeah.
In addition to adjusting for position, you might consider adjusting for whether the batter had base running in the previous.
Whether they have what? Sorry.
Base running.
Oh, yep.
If you look at the pinch hitting separate from some of the other data, you see what the second time up for pinch hitter had to do, and maybe he had an advantage or a disadvantage by not having like the previous day.
No, I didn't. I treated all plate appearances equally.
Setting an inning limit similar to how pitchers that early come up have an inning limit, or hitters even doing very well and still with the amount of games during the perspective.
Possibly. Why would you consider setting that?
And to just think that it would cause sort of appreciation in performance and or increase in injury rate.
Gotcha. Possibly. Is there a question up there? No. Okay. Well, thank you again.